Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Horn Call Podcast, the official podcast of the International Horn Society. My name is James Bolden. I am the publications editor for the IHS and your host. This is the second of two podcast episodes we recorded at the 57th International Horn Symposium back in June of this year, and it was really fun to sit down with people face to face. My first guest was Christina Masha Turner, whose episode you heard last month. And this month, we've got a great interview with Chris Brigham.
Are you ready to boost your audition results? Accompanied orchestral excerpts for horn is an outstanding excerpt method designed to help you improve your musicianship, intonation, and rhythm. It will build precision, confidence, and consistency. Created by Jeff Kirshen, retired member of the Philadelphia Orchestra, this method is available from jeffkmusic.com. That's jeffkmusic.com. Order today.
You may know Chris from various symposia in the past. He's very active at the IHS symposiums. He's a performer, a teacher, a conductor. He's worked extensively with the enthusiast ensembles at various IHS symposia, including the ones in Montreal, Kingsville, Fort Collins, Colorado, and then most recently at Harrisonburg, Virginia, at James Madison University. So this is where we were able to grab an hour and just sit down and have a really nice chat. In addition to that, Chris, he's originally from the United States, but he is quite active as a teacher and freelancer in Germany. So we get into what that process was like for him to go over and study there after being in school in the United States. We talk about the German audition system and how it works putting together a career over there, which he has been quite successful at. And we also talk about a very interesting and well-researched and important article he wrote for the Horn Call recently about horn players in the Auschwitz Orchestra and then horn players in general in concentration camps in Nazi Germany during World War II. It's a sobering subject, obviously, but it is very interesting, and Chris has done an incredible job putting together a lot of different sources of information and putting it together into a easily digestible and interesting read. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Chris Brigham. We are here for the second of two IHS 57 podcasts, and I'm so excited to be able to record in person with Chris Brigham. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So to kind of put things in a time and a place, we are at IHS 57 at James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia, in the United States, and we are on the back half of the week, right? Because today's Thursday. It was easy for me to lose track. Today's Thursday, so there's Friday and then the half day Saturday. So we are getting close quickly. The time has really flown by. And we can chat about IHS 57 in just a little bit. But first, Chris, why don't you give us a little bit of the nutshell or thumbnail sketch of who you are, your journey on the horn, the kinds of things you find yourself doing now, either in music or out of music or both, just whatever is comfortable for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you again for having me. This is, I've never been interviewed, so this is a little, I won't say uncomfortable, but it's an exciting experience to.
We're just talking. You're not in trouble.
Yeah, I know. That's what I feel like.
We're just talking.
So, I'm from Texas.
Okay.
And I wasn't born there, but I was born in Denver. But we moved there when I was about 3 or 4.
Okay.
I was raised outside of Dallas, Fort Worth, in a small town called Rome, next to Decatur, but it's RHOME.
Okay. I haven't heard of that.
No one has. It's okay. But my very first horn teacher was Dr. Michael Harcrow.
Oh, I know Mike.
Yeah. And so he was at UNT as a doctoral student.
Okay.
So he was finishing his doctorate. Then I went to Houghton.
Mm-hmm.
So Karen was my teacher for several years.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it was great to, be in the living room, and Karen was teaching, and she was always very supportive. Then I had questions about my horn, so I'd go to the garage, and there was Dennis.
There you go.
And it was fantastic. And then I started out at West Texas A&M
Okay. Yeah.
University. I was supposed to go study.
Is that in Canyon?
Yeah, it's in Canyon.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I do know parts of Texas.
Yeah, I was, because Mike Harcrow had actually studied with Ron Lemon.
Okay. Yeah.
And he talked about his, how great Ron Lemon was. And Karen had mentioned Ron Lemon, how great he was. And I went to go study there, but unfortunately, right before the semester started, he had to retire last second.
Okay.
So I did not get to really study with Ron, and which was very unfortunate. But we had a couple of other teachers. We had a gentleman named Will Wiggert who came through, who was there for a year. And then Guillermo Manfredi came, and he's still there. So he was there for two years. And then I was kind of bored. I wanted to leave Texas. I wanted to do something. And a friend of mine had studied abroad the summer before in Paris.
Okay.
Doing composition. And our oboe professor, Dr. Robert Krause, who had just retired, finally, he had always mentioned his time studying abroad, and we're going around, and I was very interested in Europe. So I reached out to Frank Lloyd.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, I'll write to Frank Lloyd. He's amazing. He sounds incredible. Maybe he'll have an idea. And I just said, I'm curious, do you have space to teach this summer? I finished, I think it was like mid-May. And our semesters in Germany go to mid-July most of the time. And he goes, yeah, I've got about 2 months. Yeah, come on over.
Wow.
And he let me use his studio, which I was very thankful for. And I found a student dorm situation, lived there, was there for 2 months, absolutely loved it. And at the same time, I was transferring schools to David Wakefield at the Hartt School. He had just started his studio and asked me if I wanted to join him. Finished my bachelor's, and then went back took a year off. And after my bachelor's, to just sort of see what the life is like. I, working in, odd jobs, working in retail, trying to teach a lesson, trying to do an audition or two.
Right. This was the Hartt School. Is that in
Connecticut?
Connecticut.
Yeah,
that's right.
In Hartford. And, I loved my time at the Hartt School. That was where I really felt like I was getting a wonderful education. And I think to this day, my two favorite teachers have been David Wakefield and Karen Houghton.
I didn't know he taught at the Hartt School.
It was for a brief time.
Okay.
Yeah. He was still working with the American Brass Quintet and Juilliard and everything. He was
kind of going back and forth. Okay.
He was the assistant dean, I think, at Juilliard at one point.
My goodness.
And stuff. And I even studied with Mark Houghton at one point. And when I was still in Texas, I was just trying to fill in the gaps. I realized I was really behind. Great basis from Mike and Karen, but you get to college, you go, oh, I'm not the big fish. So,
right. Yeah. I think that's a similar situation for lots of people.
Yeah. They start realizing and go, oh, the world is bigger.
Yeah. And I'm curious what lessons with David Wakefield were like.
The most supportive thing I've ever felt in my life.
Great.
Yeah, I will say I have a very unique take on a lot of things. Not saying that it's not like I'm special kind of thing, but it's just my brain. I realize I have visual learning, things like that. And I was told quite a bit during my bachelor's. I would ask, is it okay to think this way? And I would be honestly told no. That's wrong or something like that. And I remember my very first lesson with David Wakefield when I showed up, and he had mentioned something about articulation, and I said, well, it kind of reminds me of like a little bit of how a jellyfish floats in the water. And I said, is that okay? And he goes, does it help you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, yeah, then that's perfectly fine. And I almost cried because I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So, and he's sort of my, how do you say it in English? Vorbild. It's like he's my inspiration, like my model, role model of how to teach. And he was very supportive, very caring. He had a funny little wit about himself, and you go, that's funny. And it was great. I really enjoyed him. I learned a lot from him. And he sort of introduced me to like Michelle Baker at one point. I was starting to go back and forth to New York. To New York, and I was seeing Michelle. Michelle was wonderful, and it was really great.
Yeah, I have had the opportunity to work with her in the past. She's fantastic.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. So it was, I started realizing like I had started getting this sort of Juilliard it was all the dream for most of us is I'll go to these big conservatories. And I never really never really went to or even applied, more or less.
A little bit of the Caruso studies and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you start getting all these pieces and stuff. And
Sure.
so when I finished, I kept doing lessons once a month with Michelle and kept in touch with Mr. Wakefield. And after a couple of months, I was thinking, like, this is not really working for me. And I applied right after my bachelor's to go back to study with Frank. And they unfortunately moved my audition date to the morning I landed. So I was up for like 30 hours.
Oh my goodness.
And they wouldn't give me a space to, like I didn't speak German and the lady at the front desk didn't speak English. And I was just like, I need a room to like just take a nap. And she's like, what? And so I ended up just staying awake the whole time. And I thought I did an okay job, but the feedback was at the end of the day, well, you just seemed a little tired.
Yeah, no kidding. So, I imagine so. Yeah.
So that was a lesson learned in terms of international travel and
performance. And this was in Essen?
This was in Essen, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So then I was in Essen and didn't get in. And that's why I decided, okay, I'm going to take a year, see what's going on in the States. And then I came back and I got in. I got it, and I actually was sort of at a crossroads where I was offered the national tour of Beauty and the Beast in America. I got offered
That's a big deal. That's a job.
That was a job. Yeah, that was a job. And I was also offered to study with Eric Ralski, the Manis, and then I also got offered to study with Frank in Germany. And I had to start thinking, okay, do I go do this job? But the contract seemed a little sketchy sometimes. Like I remember it was like you got paid a whole bunch. Like, I don't know, maybe like, I don't remember what it was, but the thing was like, the stipulation was then you had to book your own hotels. So at the end of the month,
you have to account for that. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you think like, okay, well, what do I do with the lack of money at that point? Cause you pay for your food and you got a little bit of a stipend, but you paid for your food, you pay for your hotels.
It's all on you to make sure that you have enough at the end to have some money.
Yeah. I mean, Beauty and the Beast was my very first musical I ever played in ninth grade. And that was one of the big inspirations. I have to become a professional.
Just as a little bit of a tangent, how did that audition process work? Was it by sort of like word of mouth, by reference? Did you have to audition to get...
Think about it. So I remember being in Maine at the Bowdoin Festival.
Yeah.
It was like a last minute thing. I had become a fellow and I have a really old friend up in Maine named Kurt Perry, who I adore. And Kurt and I met at New England Music Camp when I did one summer there.
Okay.
And Kurt and I always stayed in touch afterwards. And Kurt is a Broadway singer. He just finished a national tour, or he's doing the middle of a national tour for Peter Pan. And he's fantastic, and he's doing, I think it's Smee or something like that. And it's the perfect role for him. And he's just, I adore him. And there was on campus was also a set of like a musical opera house thing. And I was like, oh, I love musicals. And Kurt had said, oh, well, check out this website. And I think they were looking for a horn for this tour company.
Just for the show. Okay.
Yeah. So I think I contacted them, and I had a couple of recordings lying around from, your bachelor's recital and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
So I submitted it, and they said, yeah, it'd be great to have.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I was very excited. I think it's one of the only auditions I technically, I will say in air quotes, won. And so, but I decided in the end, very long story short, I decided to go to Germany. And from there, I did my couple years did my first master's with Frank. And then I moved on to that was a master's in like solo performance.
Okay, yeah.
And then I went to a school that was called Orchestra Centrum, which is like orchestral center.
Okay.
And it's very similar to the program that Manhattan School has with the orchestral path. Okay. And so it's a really unique situation where you have in this town, the city called Detmold, where you the conservatory is made up of the students of the other 4 conservatories in North Rhine-Westphalia.
Okay.
Of the state. Okay. So you have Essen, Cologne, Düsseldorf, and Detmold.
Okay.
And Detmold where Michael Hütze used to teach and everything.
Yeah.
And actually where Karen and Dennis Houghton had also lived, and I didn't know this. And so I really wanted to be an orchestral player because I didn't know that was an option for me growing up, because I was, here in America, we're generally thought to believe you're going to be a freelancer most of the time.
Right. Yeah. Especially in the sort of that area where you grew up, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Yeah.
It's not, like unless you're going to the, Eastman and Juilliard and all these big schools, it doesn't really, we dream about like, oh, I would love to play in Chicago Symphony. Oh, I'd love it. But like, we're designed, and the curriculum is designed for freelancers, which I really appreciated it. I remember having a business music class and another class, and also another class specifically by Sue Spalding, the horn teacher from the community division at Hartt, where she would. It was designed for us as performance majors to make sure we knew how to privately teach.
Right, because it's expected that you would derive part of your income from private teaching.
Right. Yeah, you have to, especially here in America, you're constantly trying to, it's that hustle.
You gotta hustle. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
you gotta hustle. So, anyway, so I didn't realize it was an option to be in an orchestra until I moved to Germany when it's the constant thing is like, where's your next audition? You're like, so that was a wake up call. And, unfortunately, during my first master's, I had some issues where I developed vocal dystonia. And that was horrifying. That was absolutely heart-wrenching. Where you're in the middle of a foreign country. Of course, I always had the option to go back, but I was so stubborn, and that I insisted on going back to the basics. Everything, constantly like, no, you can do this, and it took years. And now I feel comfortable. I mean, we just had this rehearsal with the new corno ensemble, and Kerry Turner's up there conducting, and it's his Raphael Awakens, and I'm playing eighth horn, and it's not Mary Had a Lamb. I'm going down to pedal E flat or whatever, and thinking like, oh my god, like this is happening, it's working, But it was really difficult, psychologically, physically. You to think for those people who go through it, if you've never had a playing issue before, you can't really imagine what it's like. It's I always kind of reference it to as Ariel from The Little Mermaid, where her voice is gone.
Right.
So, I mean, in the end, I basically recovered. I still take lessons once in a while. I see I'm having a lesson with Tommy from the Finnish Radio Orchestra.
Oh yeah. He's great. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about breathing and things like that. And, but I still take auditions when I can. They've gotten a lot better. Sometimes I get to the second round. Most of the time I don't. And it's just the nature of the beast. And in Germany,
we could talk about the audition system, but are there generally 3 rounds in Europe?
3 to 4 rounds. The whole trial thing is not really a big thing. I actually just listened to a special by the Bavarian Radio Orchestra. Bavarian Radio program. Radio station. And there was about the current audition dilemma in Germany.
Oh, okay.
And it was really fascinating, and it's talking about what is the process of how to audition, and how does that look?
Yeah.
And things where you're like talking about the trials, doing through probation period, and also when you do a trial period in England, for example, or the United States, we'll have 3 or 4 candidates maybe for that year, and give each person a couple of months. And Germany, they don't do that most of the time. But there's a really interesting model that the Goethe Opera Orchestra in Cologne, which is where I live, they apparently started this new model that during the audition process, I mean, the majority of the orchestra is there, right? It's in here. Sometimes you have a panel, you have people, but on the other side of the wall, or you go out on stage, your colleagues are right there.
Interesting.
Your future colleagues are right there, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, imagine so.
But what they're doing in Goethe, from what I understand, is that they're trying out a system where, since the orchestra's already there, you have your excerpts, let's all play. Okay. And apparently it's a very positive experience, and then maybe some other orchestras will adapt to it and stuff.
Well, and it's much more natural and more realistically simulates the job you'd actually be doing. Right. Because if you get hired to play in the orchestra, when would you ever play the excerpts by yourself?
Exactly. And I never understood this concept sometimes, and that was redundant sometimes. But I remember specifically having a master class with Bill Purvis. Because I got on the wait list with, I really enjoyed Bill, so I auditioned. But in a master class, I played Tchaik 5, and I remember I was, how you play something, you go, wow, I did that. And I played it, and he just looked at me, and he goes, wow, that was really amazing. I really don't have something to add to, but you're playing it like you have the job already. Now let's play it like you're trying to win the job. And I looked at him, I said, that bothers me. He goes, I know.
It is a thing. Yeah, it is very much a thing. Yeah.
But yeah, so I went to Detmold, and if any member was Michael Hartt, who I unfortunately never had the chance to meet him. But his little name sign is still hanging in the studio and everything, and there's the IHS conference poster still hanging up and everything. I really enjoyed Detmold. It's a really tiny town. I have a friend who plays in the opera, and it's just a really beautiful city.
Who did you study with there?
Norbert Sterz.
I don't recognize that name, but I do have some older recordings with Hutzel and the Detmolder Horn Quartet. Those are fantastic.
Oh yeah, I had that on a loop all the time growing up. It was fantastic. Norbert used to be, he was solo horn in the opera in Dortmund for I don't know how long, and then he won the job to be professor.
Interesting.
So he's been there for a couple of years. I really became interested in how the body works, and I did Alexander technique, and I did Feldenkrais, and I used to be a dancer, so I was, sometimes, which is a good thing because you become hypersensitive of your body, but it also becomes a bad thing because you're hypersensitive of your body.
Well, and the whole body mapping thing is increasingly becoming more important like, what you think you're doing is not actually what you're doing. And it creates imbalances and all those kinds of things.
You find tension where you go, I didn't know there was tension there.
Right.
I was happy to leave Essen, and I just needed to get away, so I moved to Cologne for a while, and I was just kind of like in my own space, and I started studying in Detmold, and all I had to do was go to Detmold once a week, so I stayed in Cologne and went back and commuted.
This was for the orchestral studies program. Okay.
Sorry. And then Norbert was really great. He really helped me get back to the basics again, which is, of course, we're all obsessed with the basics, but he was like, you need to have a schedule. Because I was so swollen most of the time, I couldn't play before like 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And so he's like, you just need to do it. He's like, try it, 10 a.m., start with 10 a.m. And then work on that for a couple of weeks, 9 a.m. So he really helped me to like restructure my life, which is really great. I really appreciate it.
And I imagine mentally that's helpful too, to have a schedule and not feel like you're scrambling all the time. Yeah.
So it was really interesting to be with Norbert. I learned quite a bit from him. But also, I wasn't, 18 years old anymore, and I had started to develop my own opinions. Then I realized that the way he played is not necessarily the way I played. And so you kind of take, as Mr. Wakefield would say, take it with a grain of salt. And I said, I promise you take it with a pound of salt.
Right. So did you have to sell whatever you were playing in Texas or in Connecticut and buy an Alex?
Yeah.
Did you already
You
already have an Alex?
Yeah. So, okay. When I was there, I played on an Engelbert Schmidt.
Okay.
When I first got there. Because, Frank.
That's generally acceptable in Germany a lot. No?
No, it's not.
Really?
No.
I thought they played them in Germany.
No, actually, they're like in France, a lot of people play them.
Wow.
No, not in Germany. People, they will not.
Interesting.
They will. There are a couple people obviously who will. I played at Engelbert Schmidt, and then I was there, and I went to, my parents were visiting, and I was talking to Jeffrey Winter. Jeffrey Winter and Sherry Wigner became my horn parents.
Okay.
And they really, we connected very, very well. I visit, they're not very far from me. And so we get together to play quartet. So we just get together and have a nice night. And Jeff was really great and said, like, come to the opera, and really showed me the opera life and what it's like to be. And I started hanging around with the American Horn Quartet, and it was
good people.
Oh yeah. Just incredible. And it was so uplifting and, very inspiring.
That's good to hear.
Very inspiring. And so I found a different form of education, I would say.
Yeah.
And Jeff and I were talking. Of course, Jeff doesn't play on an Alex 103. He plays on a Paxman triple.
Yeah.
And but he's kind of also plays so amazing that he can play whatever he wants, and no one will really say anything. And so I was talking with my parents and Jeff and Sherry, and Jeff was like, well, if the feedback you're getting is, you're playing the wrong horn, then I think it's time to play. So my parents and I went up to a guy, Eric Borgnikov. I always forget how to say his name, but he has Rimsky horns.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we went and checked. He had like 30 Alexes, and I found playing on an Alex 103 was very difficult for me because I went from playing on a Con 8D, an old 600,000 series.
Sure.
Then I went to a Schmidt, and then And then I was trying to find what felt like a pea shooter, like with all this resistance and stuff, and found one and played on my 103 for a while. And but what I play on now is a Klausfair.
I've heard really good things about those.
It's now, I will say, the only horn that I feel 100% comfortable on.
Great.
And he designed it with me in mind, and it's a truly custom horn. I mean, it's a Model 3, so he has his models and stuff. But
this is based in Germany,
just across the border.
Okay,
in Zeebrugge, in the Netherlands. So Valkenburg. Okay. It's just like you have Cologne, Aachen, Valkenburg. So it's not very far. It's about an hour drive for me.
Okay, yeah.
And he is so attentive and so amazing, and the horn is so. How do I describe it? So sensitive to vibrations that even like that pin that keeps the spring for the valves or whatever, they realize that if I push it the opposite direction, so the other screw makes contact and one part of the screw is up, it vibrates better. And I didn't notice it, and then he didn't say anything, and they switched it around. And I was like, what is going on? It's so much better. And they go, well, okay, hang on. And they didn't say anything and switched it out again and stuff. And then like, it's like, what is happening? This is so off. Yeah. And it's the screw.
That's super interesting. We kind of went down an equipment rabbit hole, but I apologize. But, so flash forward to today. So what do you find yourself doing? Because the first time I think I encountered you, I guess it was Montreal, maybe? The Montreal Symposium?
Kingsville.
Was it Kingsville? I can't remember, but you've been involved with the IHS for a while, and you've been leading these amateur sessions and conducting mass horn choirs and things like that. So we can certainly talk about that. But I guess, what do you find yourself doing these days in Germany?
So now what's happened, so I finished my degrees and everything, and I'm still doing auditions. And, like I said, sometimes you feel good, sometimes you don't. But I teach a lot now. And I teach in German and English. I teach horn. And I'm very fortunate that I only teach horn. Because sometimes they'll say, oh, well, can you also teach trumpet? I was like, I could, but I don't want to. Because I don't feel qualified, And so I have a couple of positions. So I teach at the Städtische Musikschule in Hilden. So I teach in Hilden. I teach in Rheinbach. I teach currently also in Mülheim an der Ruhr. And then also in Unna. So there's a couple of positions.
Okay. Yeah. So these would be like pre-college students and...
Yeah. So, we're talking, for example, there's a program in Germany called Yay Kids, which is basically the idea is like every kid gets an instrument, which is an amazing idea.
That is a good idea.
It's really amazing. And so, what I do is I have my one little group of students. They're 3 kids. They're in 2nd grade.
Oh, wow.
And they play horn.
Starts very young, yeah.
They do, and so half of them are missing their teeth.
Are they playing the 3/4 size?
Like little baby horn.
Yeah.
It's really cute. Yeah. And so the idea is that, once they get to 5th grade, then they'll start taking private lessons with me at sort of a feeder system at the school in Hilden. And so right now I have about 50 students.
Wow.
And it's a lot.
That rivals any teaching studio in Dallas. For sure.
So it's a lot. And I'm about to switch to 2 other schools. I'm going to start in the town of Düren, which is just outside of Cologne, because my commute to Unna is about 2 hours.
Okay.
And luckily it's only once a week, but it's...
Is that a train or bus?
Train, yeah. Okay. So the train system, is really, I really appreciate it. It's amazing, but it's a lot of times delayed or canceled.
Right.
It's very frustrating. So sometimes going to Unna takes 3 hours in one way. So it's a long day. Anyway, but I'm really excited about switching because then I'll be in Solingen as well.
Okay.
And which is going to be fun. It's a really small studio, but I have the ability to build it up and stuff. And
that sounds exciting. Well, I didn't know that was a possibility in Germany or Europe for that matter.
Teach?
to do what you're doing and to have various studios in different places.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like almost every single town has some sort of music school. I mean, music is so integrated into the German culture. And that was also, a shock when you're like, oh, what is going on here? And think of it like Texas band culture.
Right.
But the entire country.
Sure.
And it's not just like, like wind bands. It's also a bunch of symphony orchestras, things like that. And most of them are also run by the city. So you become I'm actually
municipal employee.
I'm a municipal employee on multiple levels,
just like Bach.
Exactly. So it's a lot of paperwork. Let's say that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet having to navigate work permits and visas and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was a big shocker. We grew up in America thinking about the German efficiency. Well, it's all a lie. I was like, Renee, it's all a lie.
We don't want to get you in trouble.
No. I've already got my visa. That's fine. I'm applying for citizenship. I just had my citizenship test a couple of weeks ago, so I have my appointment in September. So I'm excited to become a European citizen. Okay. And I get to have dual citizenship, which is very nice, which is a new law since June of last year.
Okay.
So, so I work in multiple, music schools, and I also freelance, and I have, sometimes I find usually like fall there's a lot of stuff going on in the fall, and
it's the beginning of the opera season and the orchestral season, and
so I don't just, I will say that it seems like there's kind of a hierarchy of freelancing going on. It's, some places are just whoever, they'll call whoever, but in Germany, it's a lot of times they'll first call, just the people who already have a job.
Okay.
And then if they can't find anybody, then they'll go to the freelancers and stuff like that. And
will they call teachers like at the conservatories and stuff for like recommendations, or?
From what I've always heard the stories was back in the day, it used to be like orchestras would call the professors and say, hey, we have a solo position opening up. Do you have any students? And they'd send, oh yeah, sure, I've got these 2 students. They send them or something. Okay. Did sort of, auditions and stuff. But now it's very, the whole audition process is you go online to MUVAC.
I've seen that website. Yeah. It's very, it looks consistent no matter where the audition is, and that's helpful.
It is. It's for us is to be able to apply, and for the people who are, have jobs, it's a much easier system. It also makes it a lot easier to apply in general.
Right.
So I know some orchestra members complain that they get all these applicants and like all they do is press a button. It used to be like you had to print out your forms and your resume and mail it and stuff. And
but that's everything these days. Everything is tends to be going that way with like a single portal where
So then, I mean, you go online, they post some MUVAC, you find the position you want, you fill out your stuff, you submit your application, and of course then on the other side they have you whatever, like that group, like if it's the Horn group, for example, they'll go through and they'll look through the resumes as quickly as possible, and they'll give you a X or a check or something like that. I mean, of course I've never been on the other side. I know everybody I know a lot of people who have been on the other side who do this, but they select who they want
based on the resume,
right? And then the whole program then decides, okay, we're going to take 30 people, and the top 30 people,
I see,
on the system or whatever. And of course, then there's always shifting around and stuff, and then, so it's invitation only,
right?
It's not like sometimes here where, of course, highly they want someone who's highly qualified to send the application in, and then they're like, okay, the audition dates are these 3 days. They're like, nope, we have to do it in one service, 3 hours. They invite, 20, 30 people. There'll be like an extra day, a full Probespiel, they call it. Sometimes it's behind a curtain. Okay. Normally, if there's a curtain, then a lot of times the curtain comes down for the second round.
Sure. Okay. That's consistent with some orchestras in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I remember doing the Met audition.
That's screened all the way.
All the way.
Yeah.
All the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably the way forward for a lot of situations, but
I'm completely off topic. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, Chris, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about your presentations and your research and your article in the April 2025 issue of the Horn Call about horn players in Auschwitz and then other concentration camps. And for anybody that doesn't know that article, or if you're not familiar with Chris and his presentations and research on that, you should go back and read it. But so that we don't retread too much of the same ground, but maybe do you want to give us, again, if you were in an elevator with someone and you're given the elevator pitch of what is kind of the core of that project, and there's a part 2 to that, because next year's IHS is going to be held in Poland, and then that obviously ties with your research and your area of interest.
I don't know how to describe it. It's a lot of lonely work, and you're sitting there and you go down a lot of rabbit holes. And next thing you know, it's been 8 hours, and you're making conclusions that you thought, well, how's that possible? I mean, at one point I realized I made a mistake. There's one of the gentlemen has the same name as someone else, and then I was very fortunate that you edited. Thank you so much, and Marilyn Kloss. And Marilyn pointed out, she goes, "Wait a second, this is impossible. That this gentleman was here and there." And then you realize, oh gosh, okay. Well, then I need to realize where the mistake is. And I have been doing research on the horn players that performed in the Auschwitz concentration camp orchestras. And quite a few people don't know that there were orchestras, which is quite interesting, and especially in the day and age of technology.
Right.
But I didn't know about it. It wasn't part that I remember. It wasn't part of my education growing up in Texas, which we did with quite a bit of World War II history, one history, and I had excellent teachers. Mrs. Powell, if you are able to hear this, she won't, but she was an excellent teacher, and that part of the camp system never came up. And I remember going to Dachau, which is, it's all in the article, but I went to Dachau during my first summer with Frank and studying abroad. We went to go visit Engelbert Schmidt, and we were talking, and he was very kind to me at the time, and said, "Oh, well, you can go to the Neuschwanstein Castle, which everyone wants to see." Right. He goes, "Or if you go to there's Dachau, if you are into that sort of history." And I said, "Actually, I need to see it." I don't have that. I'm aware of any personal ties to World War II, in the sense of, I'm not Jewish. I don't have any ties to someone who was in the concentration camps, anything like that. But I was always fascinated by those stories because, I am a gay man, and I realized that gay men, of course, were hunted down. And I find it very important to think about the people who can't tell their story. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go to Dachau. I'm going to go see it. And I had heard about it before. And it is one of those things where you can't describe until you're there. You really get a sense of what had happened and stuff. And of course, it's terrifying.
It makes sense that, I don't know a ton about the history of concentration camps, but people with certain skills were separated and used for those skills. And then it makes sense that obviously being a musician is a highly developed skill that one has especially to play in an ensemble and orchestra. So in that regard, it's, that, but again, it is something that gets kind of glossed over. And
yes. And we forget about, what did these prisoners do to keep their sanity, right? You had your books, and you had your people who recited their poetry and who drew and things like that. And there's an excellent area. It's small, but it's an excellent little exhibit talking about the arts and the culture. And it was, people were singing, and I think about, when you think about enslaved Africans in the United States, and they sang. Of course, there was a lot of meaning behind the singing, but it was also what they did in the concentration camps. They sang tunes, they wrote poems, they had little letters, things like that to deliver messages and stuff. And of course, it was a status symbol for the overhead, the people,
to have the orchestra in it.
They're like, look at me, look at my orchestra and everything.
There's that other side of it, but but congratulations on a very fine article. And where do you go now? I do remember in the article you mentioned there's work left to be done, and obviously this is not going to be the work of just one person. It can't be. There's too much information. So
as of now, it's one person.
Well, hopefully someone will pick up, but that's how all of that stuff is. Someone else gets interested based on reading your article or hearing about your work and wants to do something related and kind of go off in a different direction. It's kind of how it all gets put together. But for you personally, what do you see going forward?
To add on to what you just said, I will say though, I remember asking my old teacher, Dr. David Wakefield. I didn't know he had his doctorate until later on. I was like, am I supposed to be calling you Dr. Wakefield? He goes, please don't. But he was one of the first people who had his doctorate from Juilliard in Horn. I think he was like the first handful or something. And I remember we still stay in touch, and I remember asking questions about my research way before I even thought about posting an article. And he said, what you need to understand, he goes, you're not there to finish it. You're there to start it.
Right. Yep.
And the rest will follow. And I thought that was really fascinating. And for me, I would like to contribute to the Auschwitz studies. For example, from Dr. Lechendro, who wrote the massive article about the orchestras. I would love to contribute to one of those articles. One of my goals is to, of course, it requires time and money, is to sort of, I don't want to say walk the path, but to follow one of the prisoners who started on Tarnów and was who basically lived around just outside of Krakow, actually, and to follow his path and take the train to Auschwitz, which I've obviously had been to, do more research in the artifacts department, because when I was there, they have a lot of the sheet music and such, and
the instruments. It would be fascinating to.
And I know there are a couple out there. There's a gentleman who does Violins of Hope, I believe, and who has refurbished and brought back to life a lot of these instruments from the string side. I interviewed him, and I couldn't. He said, "I don't know any. I know there's a trombone or something like that." The Auschwitz archives, they have a tuba, from what I understand. Yeah. There is a tuba there. The horns, I don't know.
How interesting.
But I would love to follow the path and try to get more of an insight of Maciejko is his name. And he was, was in Krakow, Tarnów, Krakow, went to Auschwitz, then went to Hamburg. Then they were evacuated up to the north and then took a ferry across to Malmö, which I've played in Malmö actually before. And then he was, from what I understand, he ended up in Vetlanda and stuff. And I would love to try to follow his path and stuff. And I have a couple of others that I've come across, the names. But one of the biggest issues and that is the lack of a major database, a major source,
right?
Where everything is, because there are a lot of databases, but they don't communicate with each other necessarily. So
when it's hard to cross-reference. Yeah.
So when I was in DC, for example, at the archives there, they have a phenomenal this collection, the Kulitsiewicz collection, which I was right in the article how I'm sitting there going through this microfiche and I'm just pouring through microfiche. Like it's not really digitalized and everything,
right.
And but there's a list of the Dachau prisoners. That played in their orchestra. But when I contacted the archive in Dachau, they say, "Oh, we don't have record of that, of these particular names." And so there's still all this information that needs to be put together. So what ironically my boyfriend is a statistician and works on mega databases.
Okay.
And so we've talked about trying to create a mega database, and I'd love to go through and try to figure out all the other horn players. There are a lot of books out there on the music and the orchestras and stuff, but I'd love to make one specifically for the horn players. And then maybe at some point I can make a database or a website that goes through as many musicians as possible.
Well, if you ever have aspirations of doing a doctorate in music, there's your dissertation. It's kind of. I don't know that there's a precedent for that, but coming in the door was like, I did it already. Can I just take the classes?
That is something I've been asked quite a few times. Like, when's your book coming out and stuff? And I don't know if there's necessarily enough information to create a whole book. But I have thought about doing a doctorate. But to do a doctorate in Germany, I would have to do a doctorate in like a PhD in music history.
Oh, okay.
So
I gotcha.
the idea of a DMA doesn't really exist. From what I understand, it's the Konzertexamen.
Sure.
And which is just performance.
Right.
And so at one point I would love to teach the higher ed level. But in order to do that, the basic requirement for most places now is to have a doctorate.
Yeah, you have to get the pedigree.
So I teach all, from second graders to, I have a 70-year-old very successful retired conductor and composer who Stephen Hartt, and we performed for the amateur horn choir. We performed one of his pieces last year.
Oh, right.
And so he's my student. So this 70-year-old, or maybe it's like 72 now, but this English gentleman. Hello, sir.
Well, Chris, it sounds like a very busy, fulfilling life. And I was kind of just making a joke about a doctor. You don't have to get a doctorate.
If anyone has a doctorate out there and they want to have a really nice stipend, I'd be more than happy to look into it.
But I don't want to take up too much of your time today. This has been a really fascinating conversation, and thank you for taking some time out of all the days are busy here at IHS. But just to kind of tie this all back to the reason we're here, and then the article, being in the Horn Call, the journal of the IHS, maybe we could briefly chat about like what the IHS has meant to you in terms of not just as a horn player, but musically and personally. And then, of course, we're always interested in advocating for people to join the society. If you're listening to this podcast, it's one of many things that are available. The podcast is available to non-members, but if you want to read the journal, you should really be an IHS member. It's, anyway, I'm going to stop talking and let you talk.
No, it's fine. I think for me is when I first I performed at the IHS in 2008 with Ron Lemon. Before I went to West Texas A&M, it was right before I just graduated. I was about to become a student. I went to Denver, and that's where I heard Frank play, and I met all these amazing horn players. And of course, you're 18. I was 18 and starstruck and freaking out.
Yeah.
Thinking like, I cannot wait to do it. I heard the American Horn Quartet for the first time. It was just like, it was incredible, an incredible experience. And for me, the biggest thing that showed up was community. Because for a long time, I was the only horn player in my high school. Yep. I was the only horn player. And I loved I was in the Fort Worth Youth Orchestra. I did that once a week. And so there were, an army of like 8 of us. Right. Playing Strike 5 or whatever. And for me, that was the highlight of my week every single week. And like I had individual lessons and stuff, and Karen would do some things. It was great to meet her other students and stuff, but for me it was the community. It was being a part of something, and we kind of come in pairs anyway, let's be honest. We come in twos at 2, 4, 6, 8, there you go. Stuff. And for me, that's really what it is, in providing a resource. I really enjoy using the resources that are available online. I enjoy the articles that come out. I really enjoy meeting people. And I realized, I was talking to a couple of friends yesterday. We don't see each other all year. We see each other through social media and stuff. And then we see each other once a year, and it's so amazing. And of course, like you said, there are thousands of things going on. But for me, what's the most important when I'm at the IHS is connecting with the people and connecting with the horn players, and realizing as a horn player, it's not just about horn playing. It's like a lot of us, we are doing multiple things. I feel like I'm here, which I don't know if I really covered, but I'm conducting the amateur horn choir group, which is it's an amazing community. I mean, there's an army of hobby horn players, right? And it's so great for them to have something to do with, and I love working with non-professionals, because there seems to be more enthusiasm, and
that's the word that we keep coming back to, enthusiasts.
Yes, exactly.
And some of them are quite good players.
I was explaining to them, I said there are some people who probably could have been in the Berlin Philharmonic, but they decided I wanted to make money instead.
They're in the business community, or they're attorneys or physicians or some other thing.
And that's the thing, is that being in the horn community is not just about, we all come together for this one particular thing, but the horn community is made up of all these people, of construction workers, of hunters, and nurses, and doctors, and artists, and finance, insurance people, and we're all part of this. And what brings us together is this
funny looking little instrument.
It's little, as my old woodwind coach, quintet coach, Thomas Ludus, he plays in the orchestra with Jeffrey Winter, plays bassoon, and he would always call us the hunting snails. So I have this idea of creating a book called Schnecki.
Okay.
Die Jagdschnecke. And it's about Schnecki, who's a hunting snail. And so it's just kind of...
It'd be a good children's book.
That's why it's one of his ideas. And so I think like there's so many facets to being a musician. And I remember in a lot of places, it's so one-tracked. Like you're going to get up, you're going to do your warm-up, you're going to practice your excerpts, you're going to go to audition, and you win your job, and that is your life. Is sometimes what I feel like, which is a great life. Love it. But this idea is like, or I could also to teach a little bit on the side, or I have all this to offer, or I can conduct as well. And sometimes I find I get weird looks. When I describe like, I like to do this and this and this, and they're like, so you're not good at anything. Like, no, I'm okay at some things, you know, and some people are just hyper focused but it all comes down to
everybody's different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everybody's different.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, it's the time together, and it's about the sound. Always comes back to the sound. And I mean, especially when I like to describe it as trying to steer a land yacht, whatever. Like, we're trying to conduct this group of 60 horn players in front of you, and you're going, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to do this?
Right.
And they are so excited to be there. And of course, a lot of them were scared of the music this week because we're doing How to Train Your Dragon suite.
Yeah.
And some people were really terrified. And I said, by the way, there are no note police.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't have to play everything. And then, I say, we're here to play and have fun. Like, why would you travel hundreds of miles to play Mary Had a Little Lamb?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and for me, it's just this great community. And of course, there are some people who cause problems. Some people are there to heal the problems.
That's going to be everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you know, and there's always issues and stuff like that. Yeah. But I just find the majority of horn players are generally very well receiving of each other, and we support each other, and we all know we're all in the same boat. We all know how difficult this is.
We all deal with the same. Yeah.
Don't worry. I did that too. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much. Again, this has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. The Horn Call Podcast is the official podcast of the International Horn Society. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this series are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the International Horn Society. Copyright International Horn Society. Music by Brian K.M.